What's going on, everyone? It's Luca here, back with another video. Hope you're all doing well. In this one, I wanted to talk about a couple of Raptors topics that have come up, and my last Raptors video was the last bit of concrete news that happened with this team, and that is, of course, the Raptors firing Nick Nurse. But since then, there have been some rumors, there have been some talking points, and I wanted to just combine everything into one video here. So that's exactly what we're going to do, guys. And we're going to start with the head coaching stuff, as we got another big firing just the other day. Budenholzer was fired Thursday evening. Obviously, the Milwaukee Bucks had a very, very disappointing end to their season. They were the number 1 seed that got ousted in 5 games by the Miami Heat. And Coach Budenholzer, this was a guy who had no problem winning in the regular season, but he took a lot of heat for his lack of coaching adjustments, and he has been long criticized by that. And I mean, after that loss against Miami, he took a lot of the blame, and it was unfortunate to see Budenholzer get fired because he was dealing with the tragic death of his brother in a car accident during the series. So horrible news. My condolences go out to Budenholzer and his family. The NBA is just a rough business, man. Like, the NBA doesn't care about what you've done. It's all about what you're doing. As this stat blew my mind, 3 of the last 4 NBA champions have fired their head coach. Going back to Nick Nurse in 2019, winning the championship with the Raptors, he's gone. Frank Vogel winning the championship with the Lakers in 2020, he's gone. Budenholzer winning the championship with the Bucks in 2021, he's gone. The only one who's safe, I don't think he's going anywhere, even if the Warriors lose in the second round, is Steve Kerr. But it just shows you how unforgiving the NBA can be at times and how this is a win-now league. Unbelievable stuff. So now when you look at the Milwaukee Bucks head coaching vacancy, Nick Nurse, former Raptors coach, makes a lot of sense, and it is widely believed that Nick Nurse will be the Bucks' next head coach, and I can see this happening. Could Budenholzer go to the Raptors? Could we see a swap? It does seem less likely that Budenholzer would land in Toronto, and remember, guys, he was briefly in the mix when Casey was fired, and my take is, if he didn't get the job then, why would he get it now? And the thing with Coach Bud, going back to what I said, he's a good regular season coach. My concern is about him in the playoffs, and his lack of adjustments have been exposed in many playoff moments. I don't know if Coach Bud would necessarily be the right guy for the Raptors head coaching job, but because he is going to be looking for work, that is a name to look out for. As now we're going to talk about Ime Udoka, who I really thought was going to be the Raptors' next head coach, as Woj said that he was going to be one of the favorites to get the Raptors' next head coaching position, but then Ime went to Houston. And then Ime seemed to call out the Raptors when he said that he wasn't interested in teams with a 5th seed ceiling. Where does that leave the Raptors with their head coach? Well, there was an ESPN story about a week ago that the Raptors were embarking on a wide-ranging coaching search, and they secured permission to speak with several preliminary candidates, and the Raptors had gathered permission to interview several top assistant coaches to open up the process, including Golden State's Kenny Atkinson, who I said on Twitter that I'm a big fan of, Milwaukee's Charles Lee, Phoenix's Kevin Young, San Antonio's Mitch Johnson, Sacramento's Jordi Fernandez, and Memphis's Darko Rajakovic, and Miami's Chris Quinn, sources said. And then the Raptors also secured permission to speak to Las Vegas Aces coach Becky Hammon, as Hammon would, of course, become the first ever female head coach in the NBA, and she comes from the Greg Popovich coaching tree. And the Raptors were also expected to interview current assistant coach Adrian Griffin, sources said. So there's a lot of candidates obviously on the table at this point for the Toronto Raptors, and just for the sake of it, you could add Budenholzer's name to that list. I could see this thing going either way. I mean, if I had to give you my prediction of what happens now with the Raptors head coaching search, I wouldn't be surprised if the Raptors just end up going in-house and they go with Adrian Griffin. It's taking time, and rightfully so. The Raptors got to get this right. The Raptors are in store for what could be a very, very big offseason, as we're going to get to it in just a bit about how they could be making some significant roster changes. And you want to get this coach, obviously, before the NBA draft. So Raptors, they're going to take their time. They're going to go through a thorough search. And then once they have their person, I will definitely make a video on that. But yeah, I'm very curious and interested to see who the Raptors ultimately go with their head coach. Okay, next I want to get into the Dillon Brooks stuff. So there's been talk that the Raptors could bring in Dillon Brooks. Yes, he's a good defender, but the Raptors don't need another guy who can't shoot. Dillon Brooks, let's call it for what it is. He had a very disappointing season offensively, one of his worst seasons ever offensively. And the way his season ended with the Memphis Grizzlies, I know you can make a case that the Grizzlies scapegoated him, but you can't tell me that his off-the-court antics of being the tough guy, of being the WWE villain, of being the guy who ultimately poked the bear is a good look for your basketball team. I mean, it's one thing if you are going to try to be that trash-talking tough guy, but then it says a lot about your character when you go missing and you don't play well when push comes to shove. That's what we call talking the talk, but not being able to back it up. And the thing that concerns me about Dillon Brooks is his ego. An ego like that can be a problem in a locker room. And we don't know how much money Brooks would want either. If Brooks is willing to give the Raptors like a hometown discount, maybe you entertain it. But my take is that you stay away from this. The Raptors, they do not need Dillon Brooks. He can't shoot. And this is a guy who got served a reality check and a piece of humbling pie most recently in the playoffs. A guy like that basically creates so many distractions. It is not a guy who you want on your basketball team, especially if the Raptors are turning the page here and they are going in a completely different direction centered around Scottie Barnes. So I think Dillon Brooks is probably going to go to Miami. I think Miami is now the new betting favorite. That makes most sense. Dillon Brooks going to a team that is still in it to win it, a piece or two away from really fine-tuning their roster of being a championship team. But a team like the Raptors, who look to be going the other way, I don't think it's a good fit at all. So, and this is going to lead me to talk about the last thing here, and that is that NBA Buzz suggests that the Raptors will undergo some roster changes this offseason, perhaps some major ones, as relayed by Eric Pincus of Bleacher Report. Now, as Pincus wrote, the Raptors explored several trades ahead of the February deadline, and the purpose of which may have been to gauge interest in the likes of OG, Gary Trent Jr., and Fred VanVleet. And VanVleet is widely expected to opt out. And then Pincus went on to wrote that some reports have suggested that the only untouchable among the Raptors core is Scottie Barnes, the 2022 Rookie of the Year. The biggest mystery for the time being is VanVleet. And also, when you look at what Pincus wrote, he said that one rival GM suggested to Hoops Wire that VanVleet could end up with the Rockets, pairing him with James Harden should Harden decide to part ways with the Sixers and return to Houston this summer. That scenario would not be cheap for the Rockets, of course. And then Pincus also said that competing executives around the league don't expect the Raptors to retain Gary Trent Jr. So Gary Trent Jr. is obviously going to be looking for the bag, and he's going to be wanting to get paid this offseason. So we'll see what happens with the Raptors offseason. But as you see these reports come out, obviously nothing's finalized until something concrete happens, and obviously it comes from credible sources. I get the feeling that the Raptors could be headed for an overhauling. And I've said this many times on my channel. I do think this is going to be a very big offseason for the Raptors. It's going to start with them bringing in their new head coach, and it's going to trickle down to them making some serious decisions about the direction they want to take. And I would not be surprised by the end of the summer if the Raptors go in a direction that is centered around building for the future and building with and around Scottie Barnes. There are a lot of interesting pieces on this team that borderline championship contenders, and hell, even teams that fall short of winning a championship, would be interested in. So will the Raptors get some compelling offers, and will they pull the trigger? They obviously got their NBA draft that's going to be interesting. They're going to add another young piece to this team. Hopefully it's a guard. One can only hope. But there's a lot of stuff that's going to be happening this summer, guys. So We can only speculate from this point on, but that is basically my reaction to everything that has happened on these last couple of weeks, all the rumors, the news that has happened, and yeah, we'll see how things follow from here. But guys, let me know what your reaction is to all of this. Who do you want the Raptors' next head coach to be? What do you think of the Raptors pursuing Dylan Brooks? And what kind of changes do you see the Raptors making this offseason? Hit a like on the video, guys. Subscribe to the channel for more Raptors and NBA content just like this. That is it for me. This is Lucas signing off. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you all again in the next video.